Well, hello everybody. It is great to see you. This is a special Immigration Live. Well, it's not really a live Q&A. I know you guys have all become very accustomed to it, but this is a special episode that is all about the top 5 reasons why spousal sponsorships get rejected. Now, if I had done this, I would say maybe even 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, this list would be a little bit different. It really would. But the reality is times have changed. And so if you are thinking about doing a spousal sponsorship, if you are even in a relationship with someone who's not in Canada, you are going to want to watch this video and listen to the 5 that I have in store for you. We do have a few people that are tuning in. I will open up for questions as soon as I get through my top 5 list. Probably give about 5 or 10 minutes for some Q&A at the end. But this is all focused on trying to teach. Why? Well, yes, we do a lot of express entry applications. Yes, we do. Well, subject to the recent downturn in rounds of invitations, which I think we're hoping to see a round of invitation just the other day. But for those of you who are focused on spousal sponsorships, things have changed. And in the old days, spousal sponsorships were not too tough. They weren't too difficult. And as long as you got it mostly correct, there was room to make a few mistakes and it wouldn't be an issue. Well, that is all out the door now. Now, if you mess up the slightest little thing within your application, it gets rejected. Just like all the other applications that immigration is going through right now. Why? Because they have high volumes and it's far faster to process an application, you guys, that is perfectly correct and there's nothing missing than it is to send a request for more information, wait for the applicant to send the information back, and then do this back and forth. They hate that. So now they're treating spouses just as cruelly as they are express entry candidates. So without further ado, let me get to my top 5 reasons why your spousal sponsorship is rejected. Number 1, the sponsor is ineligible. Now, I'm not going to go into a great length. I'm not going to take a lot. Let's just put it this way. I'm not going to go into a long period of time as to what I mean by that. But there are a number of factors that can cause you to be ineligible as a sponsor. Everything from as little as you're under 18 years of age to you've had prior criminality to you are not financially able to support the person you're sponsoring. Maybe you have another undertaking with someone else that's in the queue. Maybe you've been the subject of immigration enforcement, or there's been something else. I'm pretty sure you guys aren't in jail or anything like that. But the reality is many people don't realize that they're ineligible to sponsor. And then they go through the whole process, waste months and months only to realize that, lo and behold, if they had waited just a little bit longer or corrected whatever the problem was. One other that I'll put in there is child support. If you're outstanding child support or spousal support payments, if they are behind or you're delinquent, that can also make you ineligible. And I see that a lot. So that's number 1. Number 2 on my list is the applicant is ineligible. Well, under what circumstances are they ineligible? Well, right off the bat, criminality is one of them. If you've had a DUI in another country or something like that, there are a lot of different reasons in which an applicant themselves or the person being sponsored can be ineligible. And maybe they've had some prior trouble with immigration, right? Maybe they have been deported in the past. We've seen that. But prior problems with immigration, criminal issues, medical isn't an issue as much, although if there is communicable diseases and things like that, that can also make an applicant ineligible. So you want to identify this because you'll waste tons of time submitting an application that's doomed for failure if you don't realize these issues. Okay, number 3, this never would have ever been on my list, let alone number 3. Incomplete forms. Who would even think that that was an issue? In the old days, the glory days, the good old days, when I started practicing, it was so frustrating to me because I would go to unbelievable lengths to make sure my applications were perfect and correct. And I knew other representatives would submit a crappy application. They wouldn't care how perfect it was. They wouldn't go over the forms very carefully because they knew immigration was going to send them back a request for additional information or to correct deficiencies in the application. And so it rewarded crappy representatives, and I hated it. Well, maybe I've got something that I kind of wanted, but maybe I shouldn't have wanted it, because now the slightest error on an application form can cause immigration to return it. In fact, I have seen people who failed to put a postal code of a family member that wasn't even coming with them to Canada for their address, or a zip code on the residence, on their actual residential address in the form. They didn't put a postal code in, and immigration returned it. Can you imagine? I don't even get me started with how finicky they are. So if missing information is a problem on the forms, obviously number 4 is going to be missing documents. And these can come in so many different ways. So many different ways. And, I can see I can see these officers who are overrun. The pandemic has not released its grasp on us. These officers are still crammed in their homes, working on these tiny little laptops, trying to process applications that have been scanned in, because that's another issue. Although the PR portal is open, personally, I don't touch it with a 10-foot pole yet. Not until they sort it out. So paper-based applications continue to be the way that I'm going to go, just because I can guarantee that things are not going to get screwed up, and I have more flexibility to add other information in, not worrying about space or file sizes or things like that, because you cannot take chances. I can see this officer squinting at her screen, looking at this lengthy, voluminous sized document that she's trying to work through, and she's just getting super frustrated. And she knows that she's got this pressure from the government saying, we need to process these applications. And she's sitting there and she's thinking to herself, my goodness, look at this application. There is so much in it. And then she spots something. She spots a missing piece of information, or she spots a missing document that is listed on the checklist, but the candidate didn't include. And she's like, all right, there's my out. I can check this off as a processed application because I am going to send them back a rejection letter saying that they're missing this document. And off it goes. The application is sent back, and the officer can then move on to another one. That, unfortunately, folks, is the world that we're in. But then I want you to picture something different, okay? I want you to picture this same officer, and now she's looking at an application that isn't missing incomplete forms or missing documents. And she's going through the application, and she's going through her checklist, and the application is all organized exactly how she would want it. And she's zipping through it. Check, 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 check. Everything's in place. She's feeling pretty happy. And she says to herself, wow, this is the best application I have seen all day. I'm going to get this one out, approved, and let this applicant know because they just made my life easier. Well, how do you get from an application rejected to an application accepted? An application that has missing information to an application that isn't missing anything, or an application that results in a couple being separated for 5, 6, 7 extra months trying to fix the problems and resubmit, versus a couple that is finally reunited in Canada. Well, the answer is this. And if you haven't registered yet for this course, you guys know everything that I've gone through with the express entry process and with the courses that I offer. This one starts on Monday, January the 10th. And that is when I have a series of masterclasses associated with all of the forms, all of the documents, everything you need, as well as 1 hour with me every single evening, all next week from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, where you can get your questions answered. in addition to the templates and the checklists and everything that you're accustomed to see. And those of you who are just tuning into what I'm doing here, this course is something that I pour my heart and soul into. And I'll be honest with you guys, it has been so much fun building it. I never realized that it was going to be so enjoyable. And as I'm going through and preparing all of this, all of the lessons and recording the tutorials and all of the DIY material there to help you file your application on your own, it caused me to think back over the last 17, 18 years, I guess now that I've been doing this, and all of the applicants, all of the couples, all of the spouses, both in Canada, outside Canada, you know, that I've had the privilege of working with, you know, and just seeing this is definitely the most enjoyable part of this whole process, is watching families be reunified in Canada. And wow. And being able to carry on with their lives as permanent residents. But I can tell you something, that on occasion, every once in a while, this fifth reason pops up. And I probably don't even need to put it in here, you guys, but I will. Misrepresentation. Some of you are tempted to take a little bit of money from someone to sponsor them as a spouse in something we call a marriage of convenience. The government now calls it a relationship of convenience, but it's always been a mock. And that's basically where individuals know that the relationship really isn't genuine, but the applicant or the person being sponsored is willing to do anything for you to support them. Please, please avoid that situation like the plague. It can not only get you into trouble, but just cause problems for you for the rest of your life. And so sometimes people misrepresent on their applications. And it's not always, you guys, the fact that it's a marriage of convenience. Sometimes people have received some horrible advice from someone that they shouldn't disclose something, right? That they shouldn't say something in the form, like a prior visa refusal, because for fear that it will cause the application to get rejected. And in essence, they're making matters worse because of the misrepresentation. So that is my 5 top reasons your spousal sponsorship application can get rejected. And knowing this, knowing the current state of immigration, that is why I created this. And all you need to do right now, there is still space. This is the very first masterclass on spousal sponsorships that I'm doing, and there's still time for you to get into it. All you have to do is click on Get the Course here, and you can register for it. And the link is in the description below. And I would love for you guys to join me as we embark on this brand new course from the Canadian Immigration Institute, which is all about sponsoring your spouse. All right. So what I'll do now is I will open up. I'm going to pull all of these off of my screen and I'm going to open this up for a little Q&A session. So if you guys have any questions about the course, about spousal sponsorship, that's what we're focusing on today. So those of you who are tuning in, I love this, Voldemort. Tom, good to see you. Those of you who are tuning in, if you have questions about the course or about spousal sponsorship generally, that's what this live Q&A is about today. I'm still finishing up the last videos for the course, and I have to go down to Montana tomorrow. I shouldn't say tomorrow, at 2 a.m. I have to leave to take my mother down there to catch a flight for Arizona. And so I am going to be working really hard for the rest of the day. So this one's going to be a little bit shorter, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate to post them below. So we've got the Nutty Raspberry here. Good to see you. And do you know what, Nutty Raspberry? You actually weren't first. It looks like, at least I see that Tom here is. What a handle. That's hilarious. Nina, it's great to see you. Hello. Jamel, it's nice to see you from Calgary. And Darshan's over in Mississauga. And Lainell is watching from Kuwait. And this is a great question. So Shalanda says, have you had any persons that have had successful application via online application method? If so, what is the timeline? I have not. And the reason is because I'm not submitting it right now through the online process. Now, within the course, I go into detail how you do it, how you use the PR application. But you'll know, Shalonda, that when you go to, well, I'll show you here what I mean. So let's go here to the government website and let's go IRCC spousal sponsorship. Okay, let's go here and we're going to click on this first link. And oh, that's the guide. I don't want that one. Let's go down here and see if we can find the one sponsoring your spouse. That's the one. That's what I want. Okay, so if you look here and you pull up the guide, and let's see if we can, I'm just trying to find that's not the one I'm looking for either. There are too many of these things. Let's see, actually spousal sponsorship, how to apply. That should work. Okay, let's try that one. Is that one gonna work? Nope. Nothing quite like flipping around trying to find information's applications. Man, it's killing me. I don't want to have to do this. Okay, I'm going to do this. So this is where you go when you're setting things up. I'll just randomly pick, I'm sponsoring my spouse. I'll just say my spouse is in Canada. It doesn't matter what I put here. We'll say it's in Canada. There's no other countries. Get checklist or form. Okay, so when you're going through this process here, you guys will see that it describes everything with respect to the paper-based application, paying your fees, submitting your application. There is no link anywhere here to the online portal. Review put together in mail. It gives instructions on how to do that, right? But it does not have any place within this whole guide or anything on the main site, excuse me, on the main site here that indicates where you go to submit an online application. In fact, if I go here, PR portal, IRCC, I pull it up here, this is it. I'm trying to remember where I saw it, but there was one, you have to Google it this way, and then that's how you get into it. But I can tell you that the only indication was a news release that I saw in December, the end of December, that confirmed, yes, you can file your spousals via the online portal, but you can't submit your open work permits. If it's an in-Canada application, you can't submit them at the same time you file your spousal. Well, many times I file an in-Canada spousal and an open work permit to allow an individual who's in Canada, who's currently working, whose work permit is getting ready to expire, to be able to continue working and maintain status. And often that isn't possible if we're running out of time. And with the paper-based application, I have control over the whole thing. It's in the package. I've got a copy of everything. I courier it, I track it. I know that there's nothing going to get disappeared or missing. And so, yes, in the coming months, I will shift over, and realistically, it should go faster. But if you look at the processing times, there's no distinction between the two right now. And maybe the online filing are going faster, but there's just too many places that make it just too difficult to tell the story the way I want to tell it. So that's a fantastic question. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for asking it. Okay. Let's see here now. We're trying to stick to spousal questions, so I'm only going to answer those ones that relate to that. Okay, you guys? Okay. We've got Taha from Bahrain. Good to see you. Let's see. Nina says, oh, hey, we'll be registering for this new spousal course after an awesome informative session with Express Entry with you. Thank you for all these sessions, Mark. Thanks, Nina. It'd be great for you to join me. Like I said, I had a lot of fun building this course out. And unlike Express Entry, when I created my first course, Express Entry was launched in 2015. And so when I first started doing the course, I really didn't have years of experience with interacting with the program because it was so new. But with spousal sponsorships, that's completely different. The first application that I submitted for permanent residence was a spousal. It was actually for a professional football player in Canada, and his Canadian wife sponsored him. And that was the first one that I did, I think, back in 2003 or 2004. And since that time, so I've got a whole lot more track record with spousal sponsorships than I ever did with Express Entry. So yeah, I look forward to you connecting in, and remember the links below. You guys can subscribe, join. There's a private Facebook group that's already set up for us to interact with, and all of the lives that I do every evening at 5 p.m. this week coming up will be right in there. Now, it's interesting with the spousal, because there is so much to cover, we're dripping out the modules one a day, and I think that should be okay, but we're going to drip out the modules one a day so that we can really stay focused on because there's just so much to it, right, Nina? Like there are so many elements to spousal sponsorship. It's way more complex than express entry is. And so on the surface, you'd think it's not a big deal, but oh my goodness, don't be deceived. So really looking forward to having you come back, Nina, and joining me. Okay, let's see. We'll see if we've got some others that relate to spousal. So remember that. Okay. All right. So here we've got Derek. He says, if my country of residence has no formal documents for same-sex couples, how can I prove my relationship with the Canadian citizen? Just by living together? Derek, that is one of the most important things, obviously, is living together. And if your spouse, and you start calling them a spouse right now, is a Canadian citizen, they can actually come and live with you if it's okay in your country. You know, we've seen all kinds of things. There's religious factors at play. There's laws in countries, and it causes lots of challenges sometimes for people that are same-sex in same-sex relationships. And so there's conjugal options and things like that. But really, for my purposes, if there's no real reason why you can't be living together, that's what I would consider doing, and even considering marriage. So those are options. But yeah, when it comes to proving those relationships, in many countries, it's not like you can even get married. So living together drives the ship. Do you have things in common? Do you have shared bank accounts? You know, all those things we cover in the course, Derek, and I'd love to have you over there. We can talk about all those things in the live sessions that we have this coming week. But that's a great question. Really, really good question. And when do people come to the lawyers? Usually when things are really complicated, right? Well, that's fine. And we're here, and Healthy Immigration Law is always available to help you guys and give you direction with your spousal sponsorships. But the reason I created the course is for people who even feel like they've got a simple application, that it's not complicated. It's those that we see. Which one? This one right here, the incomplete forms and the missing documents. Those are the ones, the simple ones that really seem like there's no problems. They're the ones that come back and bite those people because they missed a postal code and an address. And so the course really preps you to know the common areas where there's problems, where you can get tripped up. And every single video has every single form has a video associated with you where I walk you through the process. And there are sections for the documents. And really you're proving the genuineness of the relationship to an officer. And very rarely do you have the opportunity to actually meet them in person in an interview. And in reality, you don't even want to get to that stage. The only time they book interviews for people is because they don't believe, based on the information that you've provided, that the relationship is genuine, or they have doubts. So our job, and my job as a Canadian immigration lawyer, is to make sure that your application is as strong as it possibly can be, so that an officer, like that officer I was describing, looks at it and says, check, 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 everything is good, and approve. That is the goal. Okay. So Derek, great question. Thank you. Let's see what we have here. Sam. Hello, Sam. Good to see you. He says, this is Sam from Toronto. I just want to know whether online pilot program or paper-based is ideal for spousal sponsorship. I have an entire lesson entirely on that topic, but I'll give you a little hint. Okay. I'm going to slide over here. I'm going to go over to this Healthy. Let's see if we can find it. Healthy Law. Actually, probably Healthy Immigration Law is good here. Let me pull this up here. All right. You go to our website. I'm not going to expand this, but you could see the toolbar if it was expanded more. Click on the link, open up resources, go to the blog, and then scroll down to Alicia's blog, and guess what the title is? She did a fantastic job on this blog. Oh, is it this one? Nope. That's Are You Eligible? Right here. An entire blog post entitled Inside versus Outside Canada. That is that's something that you want to start with, inside versus outside Canada. Wow, it's been a long day. So you definitely want to read that, because that also plays a role in this question that you're asking about the pilot program or paper-based. In the course as well, like I said, I have a section that's specifically about the pros and cons of both. And like I said, for me, Sam, anytime there's an electronic pilot, and you guys have seen what's happened with this network, this online filing, it is a gong show. It's a disaster. When you're searching and you can't find any reference to it on the main application site, when you're scrolling through everything that you need to do right here, and there's no reference to submitting your application electronically within the main link, yeah, I'll tell you, until they show it there, I'm going to avoid it myself. And that's my personal opinion. And I've just seen too many glitches with it. So there you go. Long convoluted answer. Okay. Okay. Bonnie says, can you talk about what family reunification is? Is this different than spousal sponsorship? No, it's the same thing. It's just reuniting family who are separated because of immigration. So it could be, spouses. It could be you're separated from a dependent child. It could be, sponsoring your parents to live in Canada. All of that generally is family reunification. But for the purposes of spousal sponsorships, it just fits right in and it's interchangeable. So good question, Bonnie. Okay, good question. This is a huge issue many people are facing. So Truth says, what makes IRCC take 12 months to process spousals? Can it be quicker? Are there any ways to expedite that? Before the pandemic, outside in some countries, outland or family class applications were under 12 months. And in fact, in Canada, applications many times were being processed in under 12 months. Then the pandemic hit. Then the paper-based world became a nightmare for immigration and everything slowed down. And my heart breaks because I guess it would have been November of 2020, I appeared before the Standing Committee on Immigration in Ottawa and talked about the challenges that these separated spouses were having. And we're still not out of the woods, right? There's some that have been languishing for years now. And so there's been millions of dollars that have been applied to immigration to help with processing, and family reunification, spousals, is right at the top of that list. So we're hoping that those processing times will come down, Tirth. Okay, Bonnie, great, Labrador, excellent, good to see you. I'm always curious who are Canadian citizens watching these. I have lots of videos on Express Entry and all of the other various immigration applications, but in reality, I'm targeting Canadian citizens and permanent residents as much as anything else with this spousal sponsorship process. So Bonnie and anyone else out there who is a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, I'd love to hear where you're going to get your information. With Express Entry, I kind of created my own world and people would come to me. But for finding spouses and helping them to know that the course is there and available for them, it's not as easy for me to track them down. So post in the comments below some good places that I can go to let people know about this new course that I'm launching. I'd love for your tips and suggestions. And for you consultants out there, I've reached out to the new regulator to get accreditation to offer to consultants who take the courses so that you can get your professional education credits for it. So we'll see how fast they get back to me. Okay, Bipasha says, watching from Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, your suggestions helped a lot to bring us here in Canada. Thanks for all those powerful advices. You are very, very welcome, Bipasha. Thank you. I love that. That's great. Okay, coconut milk. What items or documents are needed to prove my relationship is valid? Well, think of it this way. What kind of things would a normal couple have in common? One of the words that immigration often uses is a centralized mode of existence. So if you have the privilege of living together, it's a whole lot easier to show that maybe you're both on the same lease agreement, you have the same bank account, you have phone bills or things like that that are joint, or utilities, or you've got the same address. All of your friends know, excuse me, all of your friends know you and about your relationship. They attended your wedding. You've got photos. All of these types of things are beneficial to establish genuineness in a relationship. And as I discuss in the course, there are some things as well that kind of are red flags, things that can cause problems, factors that immigration looks at and says, is this really legitimate? like obvious things, like maybe the sponsor is 95 years old and the person that is being sponsored is 18. There might be some questions about genuineness of the relationship that would cause an individual to have to provide more evidence to prove that, because obviously when someone looks at 95 versus 18, they're thinking gold digger. They're thinking maybe the 18-year-old is duping this 95-year-old so that they can get all their money, right? Like, and I'm being very facetious and very generalized, and for sure maybe there is a genuine relationship with that kind of age gap, but I think you guys get what I'm what I'm talking about. Or maybe they don't speak the same language. Maybe you speak English as the sponsor and the person you're sponsoring does not speak any English and you don't speak their language. That can be a challenge. So those are some of the things that can actually work against proving the genuineness. But great question. Okay, Turth says, is attaching the chat screenshots and video calls screenshots necessary, or the marriage certificate solely qualifies? Turth, never, ever, 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 ever just include the marriage certificate. It's just one indicia of marriage to get you through the box that says you're married versus common law. When it comes to actually proving this stuff, my friend, oh yeah, you are definitely going to include those chat screenshots and the screenshots and the evidence of ongoing communication. And remember, Turth, the most important communication you can include in your spousal is before you get married, before your relationship becomes a serious spousal relationship. So that's the evidence that's the most important, not after even you get married, but before. So think of that as you're moving forward. George, another graduate of the Canadian Immigration Institute, another alumnus. Thanks, George, for giving me a little thumb. Good to see you. Okay, coconut milk. I love that. I have to check out your channels, what I have to do. Would not have active social media between the partners hurt their spousal application? Active social media? Not at all. That's another thing too that I'll point out. Social media accounts that say, hey, I'm in a relationship, or I'm just married to the love of my dreams. And those posts and those status updates on your social accounts confirm that you are a couple. That's great. In like manner, you guys, if your social media accounts mention nothing of this spouse, that is also going to be a problem. So I advise my clients to, if you're active in social media, if you're active, then make sure that you tell the world about this relationship as it's evolving, as it's developing. Okay. And yes, there's nothing wrong with, adding stuff after you get married. That's fine. But the reality is everything leading up to the marriage is probably 10 times more important than after. And I'll leave it at that. Great question. Okay. And I'm just focusing on spousals, guys. Okay. Bonnie says, I don't see where the course you are talking about is posted here. If you look in the description, if you're watching it on Facebook, oh, stupid Facebook. Maybe Facebook doesn't have it. This is one of the challenges. This is why I hate Facebook so bad. All right, let's flip over here and I'll just show you. So all you have to do, we'll go over to the Canadian Immigration Institute right here. This Canadian Immigration Institute, you just have to search for that, okay? And then once you search for that, you can just see our courses and it will pull up the spousal sponsorship course there. And the link is just www.canadianimmigrationinstitute.com. So there we have it. So sorry about that, Bonnie. YouTube, I think you guys can give me a thumbs up if the link is in YouTube, but it should have gone out to Facebook, but maybe it's just not there. So my apologies, Bonnie. Okay. Let's see what Gate has. So Gate says, how much proof of funds does an international student in Canada need to sponsor their spouse that is also an international student in Canada? Well, you can't sponsor your spouse until you are a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen. So as a foreign national, you can't sponsor your spouse. Remember, the sponsorship process is for permanent residents. Yes, there are work permits that you can that spouse could potentially get if you're studying in Canada. But it doesn't work that way for permanent residents. Okay. All right. Bonnie says, Mark, do you have a process of reviewing a spousal sponsorship application if the couple has the application completed and would like it reviewed by you? Bonnie, wow. Okay, let's go back to the website here. If you guys go to the Canadian Immigration Institute right here, and you go and you scroll down, you will see that we have a different way of doing our immigration applications and a different way of representing our clients. And as you scroll down through here, actually, let me go to the right screen here. As you go to Holthe Immigration Law and you look at the way we do representation as a virtual or cloud-based firm, you will see here that we have, and this is just on the main screen as I'm scrolling down, a collaborative review model. And I can tell you, Bonnie, that what you've described right there is really the only way we represent our clients. So we give them access, in this case, to all of the material for the spousal sponsorship course, and we work collaboratively with them to review everything that you've put together, to go through all the forms, the documents, to make sure that it's correct. And then you maintain control over it, Bonnie. So you're the one who submits it out there. So all you have to do is there should be a link below once again on Facebook. But if you go to holthelaw.com, and I'm going to share my screen here. If you go to holthelaw.com, once again, I'm not sure why it's not showing up there. You can go here and you can check out our approach, which talks about this collaborative review model in detail. And I even have a little video here where I talk about this collaborative review and how it works. So go head over there to our website, check it out. And yeah, you should have no problem tracking us down, Bonnie. And we would be delighted to work with you and help you guys in reviewing your spousal to make sure that you're not missing one of those ugly things like incomplete forms or missing documents. Okay, let's zip down here. Okay, Januzzi, good to see you. And Road to North America, awesome. Hello, Mark, he says from Vancouver, good to see you. Let's see here. Bonnie's got a ton of questions. Okay, my friend told me she did the family reunification for her common law boyfriend from England, and he had been with her since the COVID pandemic has been in the world. Let's see here. My husband and I trying to complete our spousal sponsorship. My husband and I were married in November in Morocco. So this is why I was wondering if family reunification is a faster way than spousal sponsorship. Like my friend in Alberta said, her husband got here in Canada by, I'm assuming, a short period of time. So remember, there's a difference between sponsoring someone for permanent residence and them just applying for a visitor visa to come to Canada. And that's probably what your friend did. And if you book a consult, Bonnie, I can go through this in detail. So if your spouse is able to come on a visitor visa to come, then you can reunite with them in Canada and then sponsor them from within Canada. And we go through all of that in the course, inside versus outside. And I even will to a large extent, we'll talk in more depth about the timing of these things. And sometimes having a permanent resident application filed, a spousal, depending upon the visa office, we've seen lots of cases where visa officers have refused to grant a visitor visa when a permanent resident application has been submitted. So I recommend, Bonnie, that you book a consult and we can sort that out. All right. Okay. Adetunji says, my spousal application is at the background check stage with biometrics and medical completed. I applied for a temporary visiting visa and was rejected due to strong ties in Canada. Yes. Okay. Do you see? This is exactly why, Bonnie. In this case, it's really, sometimes it's hard to get that visitor visa to come to Canada when you're the subject of a sponsorship. All right. Bonnie says, Labrador is very cold here now. I watch you often. You're very informative. Thanks, Bonnie. I really appreciate that. Okay. All right. And remember, we're just about ready to wrap this up. We've just focused purely on sponsorship. So George says, is it the same for spousal sponsorship in terms of needing 3 years of income prior to sponsoring, or just a bank account balance is enough? Yeah, George, is actually showing that you're currently employed. You've got a notice of assessment that you can provide. And there is no LICO, there's no minimum income or showing that you've had a certain level for 3 years. That doesn't apply in the context of a spousal. Okay, that's great. I'll have a look, she says. And Bonnie, don't apologize for the questions. These are great. Thank you so much. Okay. Will my social media have to use my full name? Well, you have to identify that it's you in some way. And if your social media account is not recognizable, you need to explain to the officer that, yes, this is you. Often a picture between you and the two of you will make a difference. And here is a big shout out. Broyden Scoots. That's my nephew Broyden, and him and I, we're gonna do a little collab here when I get back from dropping my mother off in Montana to catch her flight down to Arizona here tomorrow. But Broyden and I are gonna do a collaboration, and Broyden has a YouTube channel called Broyden Scoots, and he's got his little scooter. Broyden's 13 years old, and he wants to get into this world of YouTubing and stuff like that. And he's an awesome little scooter, if that's a word. And so we'll give him a big shout out. And I want all of you to head over to his, and when we do that collaboration, and subscribe to his channel so that he can reach that magical 1,000 person level where, you know, things really start to pick up on YouTube. So great to see you, Broyden. Thanks for saying hello. All right. And then we'll wrap up here with the last one, which is Bonnie. And she says, thank you, Mark. Now I understand the difference about family reunification and spousal sponsorship. We'll have to check stuff out and have a look at your site. Absolutely, Bonnie. Don't hesitate. I would be delighted to have you connect in. And okay, Tirth threw one more in. Is social media screenshots necessary? Understand, it all depends on your situation, or just chats. Both of those, in some instances, I do both, right? Anything that I can, that's okay, Tirth. Don't worry about the last question. If there's something that I feel is going to strengthen the application, then I'm going to do it. Yeah. And so, yeah. And same as Coconut Milk says, okay, I don't post much on social media, so I'm wondering if that will hurt. It's not going to hurt, but just make sure that if there's significant milestones and you've got an account out there and you don't make any mention of this spouse or getting married or things like that, then an officer could wonder if really you're serious, if you're active, right? And so on social. So there you go. So that was great. I love the questions today. Thank you guys so much. Remember, one of the pillars of what I'm doing today is right here on the Canadian Immigration Institute. When you click on CR courses, you will see that on Monday, today's Saturday, it starts the masterclass, January 10th to the 15th, including all of I'm still working on the videos. They're not all done, but there is a ton of videos that address every single form, all of the documents that are required, and some high-level tips and strategy on avoiding the most common ways in which people get their applications rejected. And to close off, the top 5 reasons once again: sponsor is ineligible, the course covers that. Applicant is ineligible, the course covers that. Incomplete forms, yep, the course covers it. Missing documents, we'll make sure that you don't have any missing ones. And absolutely, I will scare you away from misrepresentation. All right, guys, take care. And Bonnie's asking one last question here that says, what is the time difference from Labrador and where you are? I'm not sure. It could be 3.5 hours, maybe. It could be maybe 8:30 or 9. I'm not sure exactly. But it's 5 o'clock Mountain Time, which is kind of in the middle. That's 7 in Toronto. I think 8 Atlantic Time. So I try to do it in a way. Vancouver isn't as great because it's 4 p.m., but trying to split the difference here in terms of time. So that's the scheduling. All right. Thanks so much, guys. And yeah, you said it's 8:15 here now. It's 4:44 here now. So it would be in 15 minutes basically that I would start. So it looks like it's about 8:30 your time. All right. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. Thanks for the questions. It was awesome. And hope to see you guys in the masterclass. Otherwise, I'll be back Wednesday, 10 a.m. for another live immigration Q&A. Take care. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer.